And of course that's because, you know, you do need a bit of you need to be daring, you need a bit of a sense of humour. And also, there we have Goldsmiths, where I work, and that actual building, and you need to build around the social area or the circumstances that exist in the time. So of course, I'm not saying that we should be doing this exactly now, but it's a good memory, and maybe we need some of this. When we were at Goldsmiths, by the way, the whole area of New Cross was terrible area. You know? It was dangerous. And so, you know, you had this cultural little area in the middle of all this very poor area, and so we didn't even have classes. Students weren't attached to anyone. It was quite frightening, actually, in one way. I would come in the morning, there'd be an A4 piece of paper, and I would go to it, and I would hope, please, you know, let me have names on my paper. The day I don't have names on my paper, no student wants to talk to me. If that carries on for some days, maybe a week or two, I'm in deep trouble. I'm probably not needed. Okay, I had a contract, but at the end of the contract it would be, thank you very much, Ian. See you later. And it was okay. I liked the system. Actually. So students could arrange their own exhibitions in Goldsmiths when they wanted. Of course, that must be better. If I tell a student, right, next week you will exhibit, maybe the student's not ready. Maybe in 3 weeks the student is ready, but then there's no chance to show work. It was a good system, it worked very well. They could then invite groups of people inside or outside of the college. Yeah, back to the USA. One guy teaching, class was in session whenever you met him on campus. Can you imagine? In my college today, that would mean goodbye. You'd be sacked. Where were you at 11:30 on Monday, you know, such and such a date, such and such a time? It's strange for me, this, but we'll get to some of the main points of it. Yeah, okay. You know, what is important about, what is it that creates an art college, really? And he says it's a kind of powerhouse. We're back to, you see on the top, then you know who we're talking about. If it's Baldassari or if it's Michael Gray Martin. This idea of a powerhouse where everyone was rubbing up against everybody else. You know. Afterwards, you say, okay, let's go have a cup of coffee and let's talk about it. Or, you know, I remember one day. Two women coming out of the staff room where we had a cup of coffee and biscuit, and then the one was saying, did you know who you were talking to? And the other one says, no. Alan Jones. I don't know if anybody, it's a long time ago, he's a very famous pop artist. And he made lots of pictures of women with high heels and whatever, and these were two feminist ladies, and he said, oh my God, I didn't know. If I'd have known, I would have never talked to him, you know. But it was this sort of, you know. And I met another guy who was very friendly with another painter called Francis Bacon. And Francis Bacon actually came to Goldsmiths occasionally. He never went anywhere else. He didn't like artists very much, or he didn't like art colleges. Then you got all the insides of how his wonderful, weird world was. But these people make a success of themselves. And how? And that's very much the point for me, that is it then some kind of anarchy that works? But if it was total anarchy, then it probably wouldn't work. So how, in fact it wouldn't. So where is this level? How does this somehow work? Yeah. And perhaps one thing is that there seemed to be, and I definitely felt that at Goldsmiths, that there was a kind of companionship that, yeah, I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but you get attached to certain people. You find yourself waking up at night even thinking about what you've been talking to a student about. And think, this creates, I think people just naturally find each other somehow. I hate this idea of people being forced into groups, or now you must go together with, this was very much this American idea of putting people together. It's socially so great. I think it's not. So I think of the idea where actually I know I annoyed people very much by saying I actually don't want to see those people. I had some colleagues that say I don't like them, but you can't say that. This is this this kind of newer way of thinking. You should get therapy or something if you don't like them. Anyway, on. Also, the idea that you should have an institution open 24 hours, and say, oh my God, you need, locks and keys and people. But Goldsmiths was, and I remember there were students actually with nowhere to live, and they used to live there. They were not allowed, of course, but somehow they were allowed. So they could go anytime. But this, of course, now we're talking of a long, long, long time ago. Yeah, I'm not going to, it's okay, don't worry, I'm not going to talk to you a lot about the 60s. But 60s and 70s, and everything seemed possible. And it does, it comes around every now and then. I think Russia had it in the 1830s or something. This strange kind of hippie kind of world, where so much. But in Britain, I remember we'd come out of a very bad period, and there was very little money, and then suddenly there was this optimism. So, yeah, it was very optimistic. I was fortunate to share in this optimism. Everything seemed possible. Art was exciting. Yeah. And it was the collapse of authority. And this happened in the 60s in Britain, probably 90 or 90s. For us, the 60s was the same. In the 50s, there was this tremendous, feeling of oppression and authority. And the 60s changed all that. And, everything was under question. I remember as students, we could question tutors. And those tutors would be actually in danger if they were, of course, if we were questioning in the wrong way, then the tutor was safe. But if the tutor really was not a very good, well, then, they could lose their job. It was a new situation, and I think that situation has changed radically since. Now that things fall much more into their places, but we'll get there. It's unthinkable that Britain would have a college like Goldsmiths. And I think Margaret Thatcher was very much the lady who changed it. I know in parts of, I don't know, what should I call, post-Soviet, can I say, still? I can't call you Eastern Europe, that's finished, that's wrong. Or ex-Eastern Europe, I mean, but I know she maybe liked some places, but for us in Britain, or for me anyway, it was, she, more than anybody, spelled the end of this kind of freedom.